'Cause we're differently abled, differently.
For the fourth year, inAble held its annual Inclusive Africa Conference in Nairobi to promote digital accessibility and assistive technology for persons with disabilities. Take a look at that story.
Inclusive Africa Conference offers a platform where stakeholders come together to discuss the way forward in using technology for persons with disabilities.
inAble is a non-profit organization based here in Nairobi, Kenya and Washington, D.C. And our mission is to empower African youth through technology. African youth with disabilities through technology.
We cannot be able to work in isolation. These things to do with disability, you have to network, you have to corroborate, and also we have to network with other organizations. And from starting next week, we are visiting other organizations in the country. Already we have started. We will also be visiting other organizations in the country that deal with wheelchair, so that we can be able to work together to ensure that persons with disability in Kenya do enjoy the quality of life.
Technology helps them complete their tasks very easily, depending with what type of disability someone has. For us, technology is just technology. For them, it's an important tool. A good example, think about someone on a wheelchair. That's a very important tool for someone to get from point A to point B. Think about someone who's blind. They need to use a screen reader to be able to access websites, access applications. If they need to operate their bank account, they need a screen reader. That's some form of technology that's necessary for this blind person to be able to access content and even to be able to communicate with other people. So it's very, very important.
It's a great experience to just get to talk about disability issues, especially related to technology. And we've been able to learn a lot from data and the technological developments that have been done, basically from just the devices and even just sensitizing the community to know more about disability.
We're working with the government on multiple forms. So number one, we've been working with the Kenya Bureau of Standards, Communications Authority and ICT Authority of Kenya, where we developed Kenya's digital accessibility standard. And this standard is important because it has an impact on these innovations. So as you're developing all these innovations, we need to make sure we follow the guidelines that are on the Kenya's digital accessibility standard.
This yearly event took place in Nairobi from the 29th to the 31st of May, with delegates from across Africa attending.
This has brought together about 27 innovations from across Africa. The whole idea is that we want to be bringing together assistive technology innovations from across the continent so that we can know what's going on in different countries like Benin, Togo, Tanzania. And part of it is so that we can learn from each other, so that different disabilities can know if there's an existing innovation that they can benefit from. But also, part of the reason is to be able to help the innovators from the point of design, manufacturing, development, or anything like that, all the way to how do they take this product into the market. Because what you find is most of these innovators actually develop fantastic products, but it ends there. They don't know how to do the marketing, they don't know how to do anything else, or even just attract investors. If they need to attract investors, they need to position themselves in a certain way so that they're able to get the right funding to be able to scale their product, whether it's across the continent or across their own country.
We have several digital assistive devices that are there for persons with disabilities. Personally, I've used them, but they are not that friendly to persons with disabilities. Me having a physical disability, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with some of these assistive devices, but for some people like the deaf community or the visually impaired people, it's kind of hard for them to use these digital assistive devices. So I love to have the policymakers to have these assistive technology devices that are somehow friendly to persons that have different disabilities.
Support services are provided through families and friends, and this is very challenging because persons with disability have no control over the support and they have no choice, and their autonomy is greatly reduced. There are questions of conflict of interest and overprotection towards persons with disabilities.
With the launch of Assistive Technology Innovations Village, many innovators had an opportunity to showcase their contribution to taking digital accessibility and assistive technology in Africa to the next level.
We developed a solar-powered hearing aid in Botswana. It was developed by hearing-impaired students from Ramoswa School of the Deaf. They came up with this idea when they realized that most of the batteries which they were using were running out and they couldn't find them locally and the batteries were expensive. So what we did was we worked with the hearing-impaired students and then we developed a solar-powered hearing aid so that there's continued use of hearing aids, because most of the children were being left out in school because really when the batteries runs out, that means the hearing aid is off, so they can't hear. So it also affected their school performance. So what we did was we developed a solar-powered hearing aid, and the solar-powered hearing aid uses the solar power. It has got a panel and AA battery. So what it does, it charges 3 batteries at once. So when your batteries, you're putting on a hearing aid, when your batteries with your hearing aid, it lasts for 1 week, and the lifespan is 3 years.
We deal with mobility aid, specifically wheelchair. It is foldable. You can tilt. It can also go to rough terrain, semi-urban area, and urban area because it have all the accessories to do that. It also have all the clinical features that most of the therapists have been demanding for, and also those clinical aspects are good for children to ensure the child is seated upright and can be able to be functional.
In the progressive model of social understanding of persons with disabilities, effective participation, the informal system of support is no longer supporting persons with disabilities. So we wanted to provide a professional support system for persons with disabilities because we realize universities train these people who provide support to persons with disabilities, but they also can't find, work. They can't do their job. They go and do other things. And yet, on the other hand, persons with disabilities and those who are supposed to support them, the employers, are struggling. They don't know where to get support. So we created this platform, a web and mobile-based platform, so that persons with disabilities and their supporters can readily access support for persons with disabilities.
Our hope is that with the Assistive Technology Village, we can create the full ecosystem of how we can design, develop, whether it's manufacture, and all the way to packaging and taking the product to market. That's what we're hoping to achieve in the next 5 years.
Irene hopes that there will be many more innovations in the future to cater for every aspect of the lives of persons with disabilities.
Even if you're blind, sometimes you need multiple solutions. So the solutions here are not complete. And even from looking at the submissions that we received, because I think we received almost 100 submissions, Africa is still on the ground level. And we received from multiple African countries. So we are still on the ground level when it comes to assistive technology. But the best thing about this is that we can leapfrog and pick up or adapt what the West has developed, if it's something we can use in the African continent, and then we innovate around solutions that are not available in the market. But I have to say, yes, there are quite a number of disabilities, but this only creates an opportunity for us to work together and innovate.
However, a few challenges are getting in the way of these innovators and innovations.
The procurement of equipment, it takes time. Some of the equipment, like the solar panels, they are still not manufactured locally. And also, when it comes to the production, during the first days, it was very difficult.
The cost of assistive technology or digital accessibility innovations. But we are hoping we can come up with some solutions. What you might find is that some of the innovators actually do not develop their products locally. They maybe go to India, they go to the West, other countries to develop, and then they bring it back. The problem with that is that the cost is extremely high.
The strategic direction, we started with that objective of making support services, care support services, accessible to persons with disabilities and other users. But as with the time, there's change. Now, in addition to support services, persons with disability are asking, where can I get a wheelchair? Where can I get, a hearing aid? Where can I get a white cane? And we realized we really needed to make the entire AT products and services accessible.
5 years from now, I think we'll have tons of innovations, which means that a lot of people with disabilities will be very independent because they'll have different applications that can help them operate independently, because the whole idea is about how can they become independent, how can they be able to work independently and also become contributing members of the society. So if we can use technology to make sure they get to where they need to be, or for them to access opportunities, then we'll meet our goal.
Let's catch a breather, but we'll be right back with more. Don't go too far.
'Cause we're differently abled, differently